I want to make it clear to the American people and to all the world that all we want in Laos is peace, not war. A truly neutral government, not a Cold War pawn.
Southeast Asia, late 1960s. As the United States fights a controversial war in Vietnam, few Americans are aware that right next door in Laos, armed American servicemen are secretly conducting another war. The largest CIA covert operation in history.
The orders that I had was report to Mr. Black. It was a secret assignment.
Everybody's in civilian clothing. Nobody has a real name.
U.S. Air Force pilots are operating undercover, deciding where and when American bombs will drop on targets in Laos.
Blow up their supplies if you can find them, kill their troops if you can find them. It's like combat to the 10th power for sure.
They are known by their radio call sign, Raven.
Being a Raven is the greatest combat job that exists in the world.
You lived intensely, and it was dangerous.
It didn't take long for you to learn that this was a different war.
For 8 years, the Ravens fought in secret to stop communism. They did as their government asked, until they were told to pack their bags and go home, and forget about the whole thing. But the Ravens haven't forgotten. This is their story. Never walk again. In the 1950s, a communist faction known as the Pathet Lao began trying to take over Laos. They were backed by North Vietnamese troops, who in turn were backed by the Chinese and Soviets. Americans who believed in the domino theory feared that if communists won in Laos, other countries in Southeast Asia would also topple.
If Laos fell, Cambodia would go, Thailand would go, and God knows what would go next. The Eisenhower administration thought that Laos was the key in Southeast Asia.
At Geneva in 1962, an accord was signed guaranteeing the neutrality of Laos. But the North Vietnamese broke the treaty before the ink was dry by leaving their troops in place. The United States felt a need to respond, but it would have to be done covertly. An assignment handed to the CIA.
We wanted to be able to say to the American people and to the United Nations that we did not have the United States military personnel in the country.
The CIA would run the war, but they would need a proxy army of foot soldiers to fight it. CIA operative Bill Lair found them, a Laotian mountain tribe called the Hmong. A tiny minority in Laos, the Hmong had a history of fighting the North Vietnamese.
I knew the Hmong from Thailand. They were a fiercely independent people. They didn't want a central government to bother them. They hated the communists because the communists tried to organize everything into their system.
All they wanted from the very start, Bill would tell you, all they wanted was a plot of ground. They wanted everybody to leave them alone. And they fought and died for that.
Bill Lair gave the Hmong American weapons and lessons in modern warfare. To these Hmong tribesmen, siding with the Americans seemed like a safe bet.
In 1962, the idea of the United States losing against North Vietnam seemed incredible for just about everybody.
But the communists proved more tenacious than anyone predicted. North Vietnam saw the strategic importance of Laos. They ran a supply network, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, through Laotian territory into South Vietnam. As part of an expanding effort to defend South Vietnam, the CIA began using Hmong guerrillas to harass these supply lines. But the Hmong were badly outnumbered. So in 1967, the U.S. decided to provide the Hmong with air support. That's when the Ravens were sent in, to live and fight with the Hmong. In the 35 years since the Ravens first arrived in Laos, much has changed. Their war was lost. Laos and Vietnam are communist today. Long Chen was built by the CIA as headquarters, airfield, infantry base camp, and refugee center for some 40,000 Hmong displaced by the fighting. For a warrior hungry for action and intrigue, there was no better place on earth to be.
It was every exotic character in the world, the Air America guys, the Continental guys, the CIA case officers, these huge tribes of indigenous people walking around in various costumes. I knew that I had found home, and it was the most exotic place in the world that was going to be my home.
Long Chen was also home to General Vang Pao, the CIA-backed leader of the Hmong.
He was the key to putting together the forces on the ground that the United States would support in order to fight the war.
Vang Pao led his Hmong followers with inspiration and fear.
He was a son of a bitch, but he was our son of a bitch. That's exactly what he was. He was brutal and tough and mean. You won't find many people say that, but that's the God's truth.
Today in the mountains surrounding Long Chen, a few of Vang Pao's Hmong followers are still hanging on, still fighting the communist Pathet Lao. There have been attacks against government installations and tour buses in the area. The Laotian government refers to the attackers only as bandits. Because these attacks are still happening around Long Chen, travel there will be dangerous. The government has declared the area off-limits to foreigners. But the Ravens tour guide, Susath, has promised to take them to Long Chen anyway.
We're going to special zone, which is not allowed foreigner to go there. And like, as you know a little bit about the difficulties, the safety of the areas, that's why they call special zone. They have a little bit activities of the guerrillas around there.
My name is Joe Wiegand. I'm here on behalf of the Republican Party of the USA and on behalf of the Lao American National Republican Party of the USA. And I'm here because freedom has lost a hero. I'm here to extend my heartfelt condolences and sorrow to the family of President Pa Kau Her, to the Her clan, to the multi-ethnic people of Laos, and to all freedom-loving people everywhere across the world who have lost a hero, a general, and a president. American culture is so young compared to the timeless history and culture of the Lao multi-ethnic people. When the Lao multi-ethnic people came to the United States, you began to teach us so much, and we are so young in our learning of your history and your culture and your arts. I promise you this, that this young nation will hear a great deal more about President Pa Kau Her and his legacy on behalf of freedom. 227 years ago, in 1775, before our nation was born, a man stood up in front of assembly like this, and he said the following: "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not course what others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. 200 years later, in 1975, Pa Kau Her and many other lovers of freedom founded the Freedom Fighters. And in that struggle, there was leadership for freedom and democracy and human rights. And we know, as the good book says, there is no gift so great as a man who is willing to lay down his life in the service of others. We are all made greater for the service and sacrifice of President Pa Kau Her. In recent years, armed conflict transferred into diplomacy, and a great warrior became a great peacemaker. You are not the only people to lose a great peacemaker by assassination. It has happened in the past, it has sadly happened now, and it will happen again. One of the great American peacemakers, the first Republican president, said 1 month before he was assassinated, looking forward to the peace after our Civil War, he said, "With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Those words of Abraham Lincoln you will read when you visit Washington, D.C. in the Lincoln Memorial. And I know that were we listening to the words of President Pa Kau Her, he would say similar things about the future need for peace and freedom and binding up the wounds of Laos. Today, because of discussions that were held and because of a suggestion by Mr. Kenny Her from Sacramento, I would like to announce that the Lao American National Republican Party will make plans to nominate posthumously President Pa Kau Her for next year's Nobel Peace Prize. And we look for your support in that effort. There's never been a more deserving man for a prize of peace. President Pa Kau Her, we salute you. Your name will live on with that of Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Bolivar, and Lincoln as a man of peace and freedom. The candle does not go out. It lives on in the hearts of your family, your people, and it will inspire us all to build a better world in the name of peace and freedom.
And now what I would like to do is to read the congressional citation for this award. The Vietnam Veterans National Medal. Congress of the United States, House of Representatives, Washington, D.C., dated July 22, 2002. On behalf of the grateful people of the United States and the citizens of Colorado, we award today the Vietnam Veterans National Medal to Major Pa Kau Her.